Howdy, y'all. So it's election eve, and I came across this video a little while ago when it came out. And you know the saying, never meet your heroes? Well, it feels like it's true here because I grew up with Mick Foley. I grew up with him falling off the Hell in the Cell and taking tons of abuse, Cactus Jack and the tax. And it was a great, good old days, the WWF Raw. And now we have him here talking about the election, and I really wish you would just shut up. I don't need your opinion on election. I can make up my mind myself, but since you did it, I get to respond to it. So let's go over this point by point on election eve and see if we can put some common sense to this, all right? Fancy new intro. Hope you guys like it. All right, let's start this video up.
So, Mick, you wanted to talk about the election?
Yeah, I think it's really important to talk about the election.
It is important, but I wish you wouldn't talk about it.
I think it's important for everyone to have a moment where enough's enough. I mean, for me, enough was enough 8 years ago. The Undertaker is correct in saying Donald Trump made politics fun again.
You've made politics fun again.
For about 3 weeks in 2016. But it's 8 years later, and there's absolutely nothing fun about this man.
Nothing fun about this man? Like nothing? Like this isn't fun at all. Or this isn't fun. Or how about when he came out in a garbage Trump after Biden called everyone of his supporters garbage, and he shows that he's the garbage man? Not fun at all, just no fun.
To me, there's nothing fun about a man who could be the next president of the United States talking about the enemy within, making it clear that this was not a mistake. This is his go-to line, the enemy within, the enemy within, the enemy within.
It's the enemy from within.
The enemy from within. I think the bigger problem is the enemy from within, not even the people that have come in.
Which he co-opted from...
The enemy within, huh? So let's talk about that. Who is the enemy from within? It actually refers to a lot of different sorts of folk. But let's see what J.D. Vance says, because he was asked this question directly.
What did Donald Trump mean by an enemy within? How do you interpret that?
Well, I think one of the ways I interpret it is in the past 3.5 years, Kamala Harris's open border has allowed at least hundreds and maybe thousands of people that we know are on the terrorism watch list. Thanks to her special immigrant visa program in the wake of the disastrous Afghanistan withdrawal, just in Oklahoma City, you had a person who was threatening a major terrorist attack on election day and, of course, was working with a co-conspirator. We don't know the full background of the co-conspirator. But
all right, that's enough of that. So let's go back to him. So J.D. Vance is talking about one of the people that are the enemies from within are illegal immigrants who Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have let in by the millions. I don't need to show you the charts because it's plainly obvious with the Haitians in Ohio and the illegal immigrants taking over in hotels in New York, or how about in Colorado where Venezuelans are taking over apartments with AK-47s? The list goes on and on. That's one of the enemies within that Trump was saying if he has to use the military to remove these people, he will. And I hope to God he does. Another one is the swamp. You know, the swamp that he promised to eliminate 8 years ago when he first got in office, except he couldn't because the people that were swamp infiltrated his cabinet and stopped him at every turn and corner. Things are different now, and he can get rid of those swamp people, enemy from within. Who else is an enemy? How about the radical authoritarian left that riots? Remember the Summer of Love when Minneapolis burned down? Yeah, those people need to be put in jail. There's tons of people that are enemies from within. How about all the Chinese spies that have come into this country, buying our land, stealing our patents, and then taking them over to their country? I could go on and on and on. There's too many enemies from within that we need to get rid of, deport them, throw them in jail. We don't have to execute them, but we need to do something, because if we continue on this path, things are going to get really bad and we won't have a country anymore. Now, continue where we left off, Mick Foley was saying that Trump co-opted this term.
Senator Joseph McCarthy, one of the worst people to ever grace our planet.
First of all, no, he wasn't. Joseph McCarthy was right. Oh, wow, that's a shocking statement. Let's go over to Razorfist. He has a whole video about this. I encourage you to check it out. We're not going to go over the whole thing, but we're going to go over a little bit of it. So here's Razorfist explaining just a little bit about Joseph McCarthy.
Joe McCarthy, the man whose theatrics, hard drinking, and self-destructive accusations once led President Truman to describe him as, quote, the best friend the Kremlin ever had? Point blank, he never held one. Not one hearing about Hollywood communists. Drink it in, dipshits. You were lied to. The Army McCarthy hearings were held to confront not celluloid socialism, but rumored communistic corruption within the government and armed forces. Again, not the fucking film business. The first clue should have been the name. The House Un-American Activities Committee. How could Senator Joe McCarthy hold a hearing in the House of Representatives? Furthermore, they don't fit the fucking time frame either. The McCarthy hearings came over a half-decade later in the mid-50s after two major inquests of Hollywood, both of which were infinitely more productive than the McCarthy hearings. The fact that despite this crucial distinction, we still somehow call the Hollywood blacklist hearings the McCarthy hearings is evidence of retroactive Hollywood propaganda in practice. And you
It's a 30-minute video. He's a fantastic YouTuber, Razorfist. You need to check him out, but we don't have the time to go through the whole thing. Here's an article about the vindication of Joseph McCarthy. Here's a little blurb. Evidence accumulated from a variety of sources, including Soviet archives, that's right, according to the Russians themselves, since the end of the Cold War in the early 1990s, shows that the McCarthy charges were, in numerous cases, neither false nor hysterical, but correct. And I'll link this article. McCarthy was right. Don't talk trash about McCarthy. Okay? You don't know what you're talking about, Mick. Just stop it. You're embarrassing yourself.
What frustrates me the most is that so many good, hardworking American people cannot see through such an obvious con man who is only out for himself.
Yeah, con man. It's not like he was elected president, before. It's not like, Donald Trump gave us the record low unemployment for women, record low unemployment for blacks, record low unemployment for Hispanics, record low unemployment for pretty much every metric except a few. It's not like he, there was no new wars. We had the best economy since I was born in the 80s. He kept his promises. He put Putin in his place. He put the embassy in Israel and Jerusalem, which was a pipe dream, and he was working on a peace agreement with the Middle East. And we had oil coming out of our ears to the point where we finally exported it. But no, he's just a con man. You shouldn't believe anything he says. Just, whatever.
The idea that the working man thinks this guy is behind them has obviously not looked into his past.
Vox. Really? Vox?
I know people work hard. They don't always have time to go home and do their research. But instead of
the irony,
tuning into your favorite news station of choice, look up the data. See how many times Donald Trump has failed to pay his contractors and workers over the last 30 years. It's in the hundreds. He claims it's because they didn't do good work. This comes from a guy who claimed.
Now, I'm not going to deny that Donald Trump is a shrewd businessman, but if a contractor doesn't do good work, should you pay them? There's this thing called Angie's List and Good Contractors List. Why do we have those? Is it because contractors are always good to their word and never ever fail? Or is it because we have too many sleazy contractors to the point where I worked as a bank notary, we had to have written notary promises that the contractors would do their work as promised and deliver when they said they would, otherwise they could be taken to court. That's the kind of world we live in, and it was way worse in the 80s, I'm sure. But I'm not going to deny that Donald Trump didn't pay contractors exactly what they wanted, because let's be honest, contractors that are good are a dime a dozen. But let him talk, and we'll keep going here.
He only hires the best people. I claim he's screwing over the working man. Kevin Nash today told me a story about
Yeah, Kevin Nash, the guy who texted himself, the guy who booked himself to be enraged with whatever was going on. Kevin Nash, ladies and gentlemen.
going into the venue that used to be the Taj Mahal, mentioning Trump's name and seeing the bartender roll his eyes. And the bartender told a story about his father was an electrical contractor, worked hard his whole life to build up that business. And then when Trump did not pay him for the work he did in the Taj Mahal, and the man was unable to fight it because he didn't have the resources to fight it. Trump knows that the people, honest, hardworking contractors, don't have the resources to fight him in court. And he bankrupts them. Their dreams disappear. That's not standing up for the working man.
So this story's been around since Trump first went into office in 2016. I was curious to see if I could find any information about this. And here's Forbes here. And it's about the Taj Mahal guy. And it says right here that Trump owed $70 million to 253 contractors. Rosenberg, the guy in question, held $1 million of that debt. He believes he got 70% of what was owed. That's $700,000, give or take. So he did get paid. He didn't go bankrupt. In fact, if we scroll down, it says he left the family business after a short time later for reasons that he declined to explain, except to say that it had nothing to do with the problems with Trump. So that story, well, it's sort of true that he didn't pay him exactly what he wanted. He didn't go bankrupt because of Trump. He left because of problems nothing to do with Trump. So that's another false story. This is not looking good, Mick.
Words are cheap, and he lies almost every time he opens his mouth. But do you know what he's not lying about? When he talks about coming after the enemy within.
We talked about that.
The enemy within. Who is that?
Illegals, swamp, Chinese spies like Fang Fang and Eric Swalwell. Oh, did you forget about that? There's so many. I can't list them all.
It could be anyone. It could be me. An article came out today in NPR, October 22nd, 2000.
Yes, let's listen to NPR, the bastion of truth that's never been paid by government to release their own propaganda. That never happens.
2024, with a study that showed Donald Trump had issued over 100 threats to people he perceived as his political rivals.
Define threat.
He has threatened to impeach and prosecute Kamala Harris.
Thank God, because she's the border czar, right? Well, I'm pretty sure the border is porous and has been an utter failure. She should be impeached as vice president. She should have been impeached as attorney general. She should have never gotten passed as Montel's side piece.
Accused Barack Obama of treason. He said,
when Barack Obama, the man who got the Nobel Peace Prize famously for starting wars. Yeah, but we can't accuse Obama of treason, but if we accuse Trump of treason, it's okay. If the left didn't have double standards, they wouldn't have standards at all.
his chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Mark Milley, General Mark Milley, should be executed.
I don't know about executed, but Mark Milley was a piece of shit, and he deserves all the criticism he has lobbied at him.
He did nothing to stop what could have been the death of Mike Pence, his own vice president.
When he says, hey, Mike Pence, are you going to help me out? And then Mike Pence just stabs in the back like he's Caesar. Yeah, I think you're justified to be mad at Mike Pence.
Crowd chants.
And don't forget, January 6th was infiltrated with tons of feds, admittedly, and they probably put that up there.
Hang Mike Pence. There's a hangman's noose outside.
And now he's gone so far as to say that anyone who criticizes the Supreme Court and other judges should be put in jail.
The Supreme Court back 2 years ago, where people were going outside their homes, harassing them, asking them to die over the Roe v. Wade decision. That Supreme Court. Oh, okay. We shouldn't put those people in jail at all. They They should have the right to go to people's homes and harass them.
So, Donald Trump, I'd like to talk directly to you. Are you going to put me in jail for criticizing your Supreme Court? Because I think Clarence Thomas is a disgrace to the Supreme Court.
Clarence Thomas, the most base Supreme Court justice we've had since the 80s. The tolerant left, who claims to love black people, really hates it when you think outside of the woke mind virus. Clarence Thomas is a national treasure.
I think Samuel Alito is a horrible person who doesn't belong on the highest court in the land. I don't think Brett Kavanaugh's interview in front of the Senate would have landed him a job.
I had a beer. Are they still mad about the liar that came in there? Don't forget that people busted into those hearings. They like to memory hole that. People busted into Congress while they're having those hearings to protest him. What happened to those protesters? Oh, no, nothing happened because they're from the left. But when people do it on the right, they get thrown in jail unjustifiably for years and years but without a trial. I hate the double standard so freaking much. If you do it to one side, do it to the others. But no, it's always unequal justice. He hates all the conservatives. Great. Keep it to yourself, Mick.
As a dishwasher, let alone serving in the Supreme Court for life. I mean, I'm so scared that I was...
You know, that's one point. I do think Supreme Court justices should have term limits, just like Congress. Congress should have term limits too. Good point, Mick.
I was thinking about calling you a douchebag in this interview, and then I thought, that's a pretty strong word. Trump might come after me, and I made the decision not to call you a douchebag, even though you are one.
Don't vote for Kamala Harris. And Mick, go back to being Santa Claus and telling stand-up and stories on stage, because politics is not your forte. I hope you got paid a lot for this, because damn, you really pissed me off. But I want to be kind to you, because you really gave us a lot of good moments. But damn it, Mick, if you're going to tell us to research something, do it yourself too, because you're just spouting off the same old lies we've heard for 8 years. All right, guys, that's all I got for today. I appreciate your time. If you liked it, hit the buttons, and y'all have a good night.